Hey guys, Peter here to tell you about the latest from Warkings, Morgana, of November 11th on Napalm Records. The album has 12 tracks, 54 minutes in length, and this is the band's fourth full-length studio record. They are an international power metal band. As far as the design goes, this album has the best design possible when you consider the makeup and the DNA of each individual song. This album features Morgana Le Fay in a few of the tracks, in a lot of the tracks, let's be honest. And this allows them to have a different dynamic mechanism in order to create ebbs and flows outside of just sound, which is vocals. Allowing these songs that feature Morgana Le Fay to come separated by tracks that don't necessarily push her into the forefront definitely creates a better mechanism for the listener to stay connected with the experience from beginning to end. You don't want 2 or 3 songs in a row with harsh vocals in them, because that would unbalance the overall design of the record. It would become lopsided. So this way you have a song with her, a song without, a song with her, a song without, a song with her, and then a couple of songs without, and then finishing off the album with 2 covers, one of Powerwolf and one of Dragon Force. So when you think of this record, when you think of these songs and the makeup that they offer, this up and down, constantly up and down, up and down, up and down, makes the album more engaging and makes the album more dynamic. It also makes the album more fluid, a lot easier for the listener to find pockets so that you can breathe, that you can experience the Warkings of old and then be faced with the Warkings of new. I really enjoyed this design. I don't think they could build an album any better than what they've done, considering what they had at their disposal. As far as sound is concerned, this album is a building block from what we've seen over the previous 3 records. They've never stood still as far as sound is concerned. I've seen them evolve, pushing the guitars always more into the forefront, and this album is just the next step in that evolution. I don't think the evolution of sound on this record is as predominant as on the previous album. I think the element that evolves the most on this record is the overall vocal performance, but the sound still takes at least a slight step forward, and it still allows the guitars to play a huge and very important role on how the sound is going to come across. The solos, the leads, the melodies, the harmonies, everything surrounding the guitars on this record is through the roof. If you're looking for positives, or if you're looking for things that shine or that stand out in the overall experience that this record gives, you have to always talk about the guitar sound and the guitar execution. I love every single song that this album offered as far as the guitars are concerned. Now, when you're going through it, some songs may sound slightly different as far as the intensity, as far as the drive, as far as using those guitars to really propel the listener forward. And that is true. But you have to think about the songs in terms of the context of the stories that they're telling. This album has an idea, has a concept to it. And in order for them to deliver that, they have to adjust the soundscape of the tracks to match what the story is trying to put forward. Otherwise, it would just not go well together. So even in those tracks that you don't necessarily feel like the guitars are leading the way, they still play a very important role. They still have powerful solos. They still have great attributes that really allow them to stand out, sometimes more, sometimes less, but always stand out as one of the key elements of the sound, of the overall sound that this record gives. The element that, in my opinion, drives this album, the element that sets this record apart from the previous records, is Morgana Le Fay. In previous albums, they've had guest vocalists on a few tracks, and they've had harsh vocals on a few tracks, but never to the point that we see on this album. This record also uses a lot of narrator, deeper style vocals, choirs, backing vocals, layers. There's a lot of things happening vocally throughout the entire album, and I've never seen this much diversity, or at least pushing this much of that envelope as I see on this album. I think that was the goal to begin with. That was the goal behind the design of the record and the idea, concept, whatever it is that you want to call it, that this album offers. I am not necessarily a fan. I enjoy Morgana Le Fay's vocals. I think she adds something. She adds texture. In some of the tracks, she adds quality to where the story is going or where they are in the story. But they have a great vocalist. And when you depend heavily on harsh vocals to create movement within the songs, to change the ebbs and flows, to create action, if you will, within the tracks, you end up losing something. And what do you lose is the hookiness and how catchy some of their previous songs were compared to some of the songs on this album. They don't seem to have that same explosive nature because they're too dependent on this one single element, or I should say they're dependent on the variety of elements that make up the overall vocal performance. I think it's too much for one album. It becomes a little bit chaotic in terms of how you decipher where this record is going, and it takes away from their main vocalist and from their main strengths, which was always to create easy to listen to, simple power metal songs that had great hooks and great melodies. Not to say that this album doesn't have great hooks and doesn't have great melodies. It just doesn't have it as consistently as some of their previous albums. And then when you add that vocal diversity into the mix, it becomes a lot harder to find them because it feels like the songs are depending on something else to catch your attention and not necessarily in those hooks and in those choruses or those melodies. This allows the overall album to feel a little bit like a pizza that has too many anchovies, and you don't like anchovies. So you want to eat the pizza because you're really enjoying it, but you're also spending quite a bit of time picking the anchovies out. So that's how I felt listening to this album. It took me a few times going through to be able to enjoy the experience. But the more I enjoyed the experience, the more I found myself finding songs or looking for specific songs within this record that I really connected to, and kind of disconnecting from those that I didn't really feel that had the proper strength or the proper development in order to keep me engaged from beginning to end. It's not a weak album all around, but it's definitely not their strongest album to date. I felt like this was a gamble vocally to go in this direction, and going in this direction vocally also played a role and affected definitely the sound that the album offers. I think things could have been a little bit more balanced, and if they were a little bit more balanced, the album would have been a lot stronger. As far as favorite songs are concerned, I'm going to start off with Last of the English. This song has a great intro because the intro builds to the story that the song is all about. The narrator works really well in this song. The problem with the narrator is that it doesn't work well. It works well on every single track, it's just that it feels always overused. And this song perhaps worked a little bit better because of how it was built in at the beginning, in the middle. It really worked in order to tell you where you are, where you're going, what is the story all about. You needed some help to guide you through, and the narrator definitely does that. The song has great guitar sound, great heaviness, pushing those guitars, allowing those guitars to have a little bit of life, to have a little bit of energy, and to really move the song well, and then allowing the vocals to jump off the track and having a very memorable chorus. This is one of those songs that has a really great chorus, and that's important for a band like this. And regardless of everything else that is happening around it, that chorus still stays in the mind of the listener. Using some vocal layers in that chorus help give depth to where that chorus is, to how it sits in the overall context of the overall track, because you want to create some volume, you want to make it a little bit thicker, a little bit bigger, just to match everything else around it. The bridge leading up to the solo is fantastic, but the solo is epic. This song has one of my favorite, if not my favorite solo on the entire album. Very explosive, very old school, but matching the overall energy that the track gives, really complementing the song, making it feel absolutely complete from start to finish. Next you have Heart of Rage. This is perhaps the only song featuring Morgana Le Fay in an extensive way that I really liked. I really connected with this track, and I felt the reason for it was twofold. First of all, I really enjoyed the Arabic sounds and experiences and what that added to the overall design of the song and how the song comes about. It makes the song a lot more melodic. That's point number one. Point number two, this track has the best chorus in the entire album because it merges two things. Great sound, great melody, a sound that's contagious, a sound that makes you want to move, a sound that's energetic, with an incredible vocal performance. They have an incredible vocalist, and I don't feel like he was able to really expose himself as he has on previous records on this album. He was a little boxed in, but on this chorus, he wasn't. He was free. He was able to let go. And the warmth that he had in his voice matched with the warmth of that melody in the sound definitely becomes an earworm. This track has that chorus that you're always looking forward to. You're listening to the whole song, waiting for those choruses to pop up, and that's a great thing about any track. This is my whole favorite song in the entire album. Last but not least, I have to mention this track, Amarta Strigoi, Powerwolf's cover. What a great cover. After listening to this cover and the Dragon Force cover, I'm left wondering, why don't these guys release an all covers album? They have such great attributes as musicians. Great band members, great vocalists. They really feel like a well-oiled machine. And they have a little bit of that old school power metal sound that a lot of bands are walking away from these days. So why not create an album's cover taking some songs from other bands, not metal bands, whatever they want to do. Because I think it would really outshine, or at least give a chance for fans that haven't perhaps discovered Warkings by now. I don't know where the hell they've been, but they haven't discovered Warkings by now to perhaps find them through that path. This Amarta Strigoi song is phenomenal. I love the original. I love the original from Powerwolf, but this one feels more power metal. It feels more stripped down. It feels more meat and potatoes. It's more drums, it's more guitars with an insane vocalist over the top. Less keyboards, less fanfare, if you will, and more straightforward metal. And I absolutely love this song. It's one of my favorite songs on the album. I don't want to say it's my favorite song because I want to save that for Heart of Rage, which is original material. But this cover is phenomenal. They absolutely nailed it as far as the energy, as far as what the song represents, the theme within the song. Everything about this track was insanely done by Warkings. Congratulations on this cover. Please release an all covers album. I think it would be phenomenal, and I think fans would really appreciate it. This is it. Warkings, Morgana, out November 11th on Napalm Records. Let me know your thoughts on the band, on the singles. Use the comment section below. I'll be reading those and getting back to you. Take care, guys.